Hi everybody, Roger here again, and today I'm going to be talking about the location of the Colvin-Kansas sawmill. Now, over the course of 120 years since the time of the Colvin-Kansas, the exact location of the sawmill has been lost to time. And I'm a bit of a historian, and I'm always rummaging through family history as I'm putting together our genealogy records and learning more about our past. And I've come across a few interesting little tidbits of information that gave me clues to the whereabouts of where the sawmill was located. And I'm going to go over what I've found, and yeah, just follow along and you'll see what I've been talking about. Now, this first album picture I'm going to show you is of what we call either the greenhouse or the rough bay house. And this house still stands today, and it's in my family. At the time of this picture was taken, this house was Sointilla's first school. And this building is along First Street on the way to Rough Bay. So this is a picture of the kids at that time when they went to the school. Now I'll flip the photo around. And it says, Sointilla Public School, December 20th, Thursday, 1923, from Mrs. M. Hassop, I think it says. Maybe that was one of the teachers, I'm not sure, at that time, in the 1920s. And this photo was taken just out in front of the front steps of the building. So now moving forward in time, if I go to this album, so this photo was taken when my grandfather, Miko Potu, lived in the house. So before Miko Potu owned the house, it was his parents, my great-grandparent, Herman and Olga Potu's retirement home. And Herman and Olga Potu bought the house off of the school board. And I don't have the exact date in front of me when they bought it off the school board, but during the time when my grandfather, Miko Potu, or Michael Polton, lived in the house, he wrote this on the back side of this one photo. So this photo was taken June 4th, 1974. East side or morning side of the house, originally built by John Sullivan before 1910 from lumber partly from the dismantled Colvin-Kansas sawmill, which stood on Block 109. So that's a very important hint right there that the sawmill was on Block 109. So let's try and see what we could find out where Block 109 was. So this is just a snippet of the assessment for the property and gives the civic address of 371st Street. And when I move over to this is just a screen capture I took of Sointilla's civic address map. And I just took a screen capture of just this one location because it shows where 371st Street is. Now, I'm just going to say, I already know where 371st Street is because the house belongs to my family. But for the sake of showing you on these maps that I'm going to show you where Block 109 is, I just got to make sure you guys know the whereabouts of 371st Street. So looking at this section of the civic address map of Sointilla, I'm going to follow down here to this map is a cadastral map. Now, a cadastral map shows all the subdivisions that have taken place during history. Now, if you look here, right in this area here, on this cadastral map, it says Block 109B and Block 109A. And if we look at Plan 816, we are going to find those blocks 109 and 109B. So let's go take a look at that. So before I move on to Plan 816, I just want to show you here the Sointilla civic address map and the cadastral map lined up. Now, on the civic address map, it didn't have the street names written on it, so I had to take the street names from the cadastral map and write them on here just to show you that we're looking in the right location. So on the Civic address map, you see our property up here, 370 on First Street, and I wrote in block 109B. That's because you can see that the property is just below 7th Avenue here. If you are looking on the cadastral map, you'll see 7th Avenue here, and block 109B is in the same spot as 370. See, 7th Avenue, 7th Avenue, block 109B, plan 816. Down from 7th Avenue, this one up is 370. Now, this is where things get really interesting. This is a printed out plotter map of Plan 816. Now, I'm just going to zoom in here on the map because it's a large chart. As you can see up at the top, Plan 816. The plan of Sointila town site, Malcolm Island, BC. Scale, 200 feet equals 1 inch. And now this map is surveyed from September 9th, 1905. So this is after the time of the Culvin Cansa. Now, if we were you're looking at the town of Sointila. And the area of interest is here, down from 7th Avenue. You see 109B, and just up of 109B is this huge long strip here, and it is 109. And the interesting thing here is we got block 109 here, 109B and 109A, and this whole block 109 is on plan 4432. So let's pull up plan 4432. So here we have plan 4432. And this is a subdivision of block 109. So that means at the time this map was created, block 109 was whole, and this is a subdivision when they subdivided block 109. So you're looking at all of this, that whole strip from plan 816. This is block 109. And when it was subdivided in 1937, May of 1937, it was subdivided. Now, if you remember, our property is 109B. So this is the property here, and this is the driveway between block 109 and 109B and 109A. This is all block 109. And our property here on First Street, 370 First Street, is on 109B. Now the interesting thing in here, in the driveway, was an old well, and that was said to have been Sointila's first well, which makes sense if block 109 is where everything was at the time of the Culvin Cansa. So now that we know where block 109 is, let's try and figure out the exact place where it ends, because we know it begins here beside my brother's, where my brother lives out on the way to Rough Bay, all the way over here. So let's see where it ends. And we'll know somewhere in this whole area here is where the Culvin Cansa sawmill was. Now I'm just looking back at plan 816, and you could see block 109A, block 109B, which is our property, and then block 109. So all this is block 109. And it ends just below 3rd Avenue. So between 7th Avenue and 3rd Avenue, right here, is block 109. So I was just doing a little bit of drawing here to try and align block 109 up with a modern Civic address map. So you're looking at here Plan 816, which was a survey done in 1905. And then there was an updated plan put on the map for Plan 4432, which was done in 1937 when they subdivided Block 109. Here you can see it's Block 109. Here is our property, which back then was 109B. Today it is 370 First Street and 109A. So this whole thing is Block 109. You can see Block 109A begins where 8th Avenue is and goes along First Street. So now this is the Civic address map. You can see 8th Avenue here along First Street. Here is Block 109A and our property 370 First Street, Block 109B. And then there's our driveway here, and Sointilla's first well used to be in the driveway here. I'll show you in a bit when I go drive down this way because I want to show you. But here is Block 109. Now, on the original plan map, it says that there was a 3rd Avenue, or it was in the plannings to have a 3rd Avenue. You can see it doesn't exist in here at all. So when you're going down 2nd Street, these avenues don't go all the way and connect to First Street, by the way. There's a hillside going here, which the Finns called Kotiharju, and I'll show you that as we go down First Street to find Block 109. But they end at 5th Avenue here on this map, and then there's a 2nd Avenue. So we'll go see this area. You can see Block 109 was supposed to end at 3rd Avenue. So if you were looking at a map here, you could see here we have 2nd Avenue connecting down here. We'll go take a look at that. I don't think that's what it's called, and I don't think it goes down there anymore. So we'll go see on a map where that is. And you can see Block 109, and we have the residential addresses of all these properties. So it goes from here, Block 109A is 344 First Street, and Block 109A ends at 360 First Street, and then Block 109B is our property, 370 First Street, and then Block 109 is 376 First Street to 420 First Street. So let's go take a look and see what Block 109 looks like today. All right, well, let's take a ride down First Street and see where Block 109 was. Okay, so this is First Street, and you're looking at what we call the Hall Hill. And on top of that big gray building up there, that is the Finnish Organization Hall. And that blue building is the old athletic hall, also known as the Fire Hall. And this building down on my left is what is now a library, but it was Sointilla's old school, but not the first school in Sointilla. And I am standing on First Street and looking up 13th Avenue. So we're going to be going down First Street here to see where Block 109 was. So looking at my map here, you could see that Block 109A began at 344 First Street. So let's see if we could find 344 First Street. So I'm looking down First Street towards the town of Sointilla. From where I'm standing, you could see the mural. This hillside going along here, the bank separates First Street and 2nd Street on top of that bank. And the Finns called that Kotiharju in Finnish. And it means home ridge. Now, I'm just going to walk forward because from this position going forward is where 344 First Street is. And so this area I'm walking right now is block 109A. So off to my left here is 344 First Street. And then the next property here that I'm approaching now is 360. So if I look at the map, I just walked 344 to 360, so that was block 109A. Now if you remember, our property is 370 First Street, and if you remember from the photo in the album, this is our property here, 370 First Street. And you should be able to recognize it from the photo earlier on. And this was at one time Sointela's first school. And it was built by Jussi Sulini in around 1904. And it has three rooms to it. So there's two bedrooms in behind here, and then there's one main kitchen living room area. And this giant roto is one of those heritage rotos that were brought to Malcolm Island by the Manta family. A cool thing about this property, these orchard trees were planted by my great-grandparents, Herman and Olga Potu. If you remember Herman and Olga Potu, this was their retirement home, and they bought it off the school board. And then my grandfather, Mikko Potu, lived here. And then when he died, my mom inherited the property. And this is where my brother lives when he's here in Sointela. But this was Sointela's first school. And this is 370 First Street. Just walking around the front side of the house. It's in rough shape now, but this would have been where those school kids were standing way back when in 1923 was the photo was taken. And this is the front side of the house. And it's got a beautiful ocean view. My great-grandparents used to have a sauna here by the beach, but it's long since fallen down. This here is a Himalayan blackberry plant that was brought here by my great-grandfather, Herman Potu. Is the one who brought the Himalayan blackberry to the Finns on Malcolm Island. And back in the day, they knew how to tame the Himalayan blackberry, because this bush doesn't take over like most Himalayan blackberries do. He knew how to tame it, and it's been tame ever since. I just got to walk back to my truck, and then I'll take you further down, and we'll explore where Block 109 was and try and figure out maybe an estimated area where the Colvin-Kansas sawmill could have been. So in orange there, you see our property 370. There's a driveway between our property 370 First Street, which is Block 109B, and this big yellow section, which is Block 109. And I'm standing in the driveway here. Just wait until that car goes by. And I'm going to walk down the driveway between our property. Over there is our house, 370 First Street. I'm walking down the driveway, and down at the base of this tree is where Sointela's first well was. Now, at one time there was like a well ring here, and it had a cap over it and stuff, but whoever bought the neighboring property decided to take out this well and destroyed this historic feature on the island. However, this is where Sointela's first well was. Now, from our driveway here, you could see that Block 109 starts at 376 First Street and goes and ends at 420 First Street. So here is 376 First Street. And way down there, probably around where that vehicle is down the road, is 420 First Street. So I'm just going to drive ahead to where 420 First Street is. Now, here I am standing at the edge of where 420 First Street ends. Looking down First Street. So this is the end of Block 109. And it's right bordering where Malcolm Island Shellfish Co-op used to be. This is where the Shellfish Co-op was during the early 2000s. So, down this stretch is Block 109. So, in this area was the Colvin-Cansa sawmill, somewhere down this stretch. Okay, so now that we went on a little venture there, we know exactly where Block 109 was. We know that at 370 is Block 109B, and that's our property. And that house was Sointilla's first school, built around 1904. And it was built out of the partially dismantled Colvin-Cansa sawmill. And the Colvin-Cansa sawmill existed on Block 109. So now I found an interesting map I pulled out. And this map was a survey map of Sointilla's first, or Malcolm Island's section. And this is before the time of the Colvin-Cansa. This was in February 22nd of 1892. Now this is when Malcolm Island first had its survey for its section lines. Now things are updated on these maps. So going ahead in time, you see in the area where Block 109 was, it says mill. So this is telling me the whereabouts between a subsection 65A and 160A of where the Colvin-Cansa sawmill was. And I'm going to try and figure out exactly where this is on Block 109 as these subsections get broken down further into what the current lots are on Malcolm Island. But there we have it, the location of the sawmill right there, written plain as day on this map. Now, this is another print of an old map showing the section lines on Malcolm Island. And I'm going to zoom in here to, if you remember, 53A. And you could see here, it is showing the sawmill. And then there's some numbers here. And I'm pretty sure these are in reference to some other plan map that I am not sure of. But I am going to do some future digging here to see if I could find out who might know where to pull up this information. But that definitely is the Colvin-Cansa sawmill on Block 109. Now I just got to figure out where on Block 109 this is. And it seems to me that it is somewhat close to Block 109B or 370 First Street, our property where the old schoolhouse building is. So let's see if we could try and figure out exactly where this is. So we know that the Colvin-Cansa sawmill existed on Block 109. And here it is showing the mill. Now pay attention to these section lines. You see this triangular one where the mill is located, and this big square here. Now I'm going to go to the next map, which is Plan 816, which is going to zoom in on this area. So let's scroll over here and zoom out. And you see this big triangle here and the square section beside it. And you see it's 20 and 21. Now I'm going to just go back to the other. There's 20 and 21. You see the triangle is 20 and 21 is the square, or 160A is the square. So we're going to look at 65A, or the section line 20. So going back to plan 816, there is the big triangle here, and that is where block 109 is. And here's 109B, which is 370 First Street, which is our property where the old school building still stands. And it looks, if you look back on this other map here, it doesn't look too far from this pin here to where the mill was. So the mill is somewhat close. It's either was on our property 370 First Street, 109B, or right at the neighboring property here beside 370 First Street. So if I pull up, see a residential map. You know, my map mess here. We pull up the residential map. It could either be, the mill could be here on our property 370, or it could be here, which is on block 109, 376. So let's take a look here. Looking, block 109 is in here. So it could be in this area. Now let's see here. So according, when I put plan 816 here, 109A is here, and that section line kind of cuts through right about here. This section line here goes up. So, I learned a lot in this little investigation on trying to find out where block 109 is, and discovered where the Colvin-Kansa colonization's sawmill is posted on a couple maps, and we kind of have a rough idea where it was. So this is about as far as I could go for the time being. I hope you enjoyed this video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see future videos, me investigating history and local area around Malcasora, Island. And yeah, enjoy. Ciao. Whatever. Bye. Skedaddle. Go. Just go.